Oh my gosh. All right, I just went live. I was on time, I promise. Um, and I hit the mute by accident. So I apologize. We're going to do this again. So if you tuned in for part of that, someone, thank you for my friend that actually messaged me and said, you don't have any sound. We're just looking at this picture. What does it mean? Okay, so I went to the gym today. I'm gonna give you all the good tidbits that I had in the first one as well. I went to the gym, and my trainer and I were I missed a lot of last week because she was out of town. Her son graduated from basic Air Force basic training, which was very exciting. Anyway, and I was just like, when I saw her yesterday, and then of course again today, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I'm back in the gym, because I just felt like I had no energy last week. I didn't feel like myself. And we kind of talked about how people will say to us, they're like, I don't have any energy to go to the gym. And we always, I always tell everyone, I'm like, if you don't feel like going to the gym, that's exactly when you should get your shoes on and go to the gym. Because what we found as being, someone who goes to the gym regularly, and of course I don't feel like going to the gym every day that I go to the gym. I don't, but I go to the gym anyway because that's who I am. And I've learned that when I go to the gym and I don't feel like exercising, if I just go and get started, I will feel so much better. I get that energy back. It changes my whole day. So that's my little tidbit. That's the bonus for today. And I've been getting a lot of compliments about the lip stain. So I did want to mention this is if you could do mascara and lip stain, because I don't like to wear makeup, and I really, I have good skincare, the Remon skincare. So if you're interested, if you need some new skincare, but they have this lip stain, which is really hydrating for the lips. I've tried lip stain in the past and it just dried up my lips and it made them look like pieces of leather. Not the look I'm going for. But I've been wearing this because it hydrates your lips and it keeps them in good shape, and it gives a little bit of color because I am so fair. I have melasma, so I do not go out in the sun because I'm all blotchy and it's just really ugly. So I avoid the sun. And this, this makes me look like I have makeup on along with the mascara that just defines my eyes a little bit better. So I feel like I've got another little tidbit trick for you. Okay, so what I wanted to do today is, I get asked to look at people's labs all the time. And if you've watched me for any period of time, you know that I am promoting a core health panel that I do, that I offer through my functional medicine practice. And I wanted to talk to you about why that is, because I'm just going to talk to you about one lab that is on the core health panel that really gives me information. So when people get their core health panel, you have this whole back end, like this whole portal, and I am explaining every part of your lab to you. Okay, so but there's an option that I will examine your labs and tell you what your labs show, so that you don't have to extrapolate that information. I also offer that, but all the information is there. And I've been getting a lot of questions like, why is this looking like this? So I thought, oh my gosh, that's such a good teaching point to let you know why I put certain labs in the core health panel. Like, why did I do that? And here's why. Because functional medicine looks at labs differently. So already I have a more narrow window. These are optimal levels. And I can tell you, I'm looking for dysfunction. I'm not waiting until you have disease. So that's the first thing, is that I'm looking at them differently than what an allopathic or traditional doctor would look at your lab ranges. They go based on the traditional lab ranges. But the problem with that is that those labs are being done, and it looks at everybody who's had that lab done. So imagine the people who've had the lab done, a lot of them are ill. And so we're not doing labs on normal people. We're doing labs on people who already have disease. And then we're looking at a bigger cross section of that and calling that normal. That does not make sense, right? That does not make sense. So I look at them through optimal levels. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you, because there's multiple different scenarios, and many of these have come up. And I've actually been able to work with people after we've identified what's going on, because nothing worse than feeling like crap you know, you don't have any energy, or you wake up and you feel just tired, even though you got 8 hours of sleep. And then when it's time to go to bed, you're completely wired, or you feel like you have to take a nap every day, or you feel like you can't go longer than about 60 to 90 minutes without eating, or you get shaky, you feel hangry, you're irritable, you have brain fog, like all of those things. And then you go to your doctor and they say, oh, well, your labs are normal, you know? So I get that frustration. That's happened to me before. I totally get that frustration, which is why I have the Core Health Panel, because I want you to know that you know your body better than anybody, right? You know what you feel. You know when you feel normal. You know when you feel energetic. You know when you're sleeping well. You know when you're like firing on all cylinders, and you know when you're not. So when you don't get an answer, when you go and get labs done and you still don't get an answer, I just want to let you know that, number one, looking at traditional values is different than looking at functional optimal values. But I do tests that aren't in your traditional lab panel, and I'm just finding all kinds of stuff. So I wanted to share this because this is one that comes up a lot. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it around. I'm going to show you. I've written it all out, and I'm going to show this to you, and you're just going to hear my voice. Last time I did this, which is why I'm redoing it, I muted myself, which might be good for some people, but anyway, that defeats the whole purpose. Okay, so I just want to tell you, so we're going to start at the difference between these optimal levels and functional levels. So I want your fasting blood sugar to be below 90. When it gets to be 90 to 99, I'm concerned about that. I'm looking for a reason. We're working on some stuff. Traditional normal is 100 to 125, and diabetes is over 126. Okay, so I just want to let you know that's the difference. Hemoglobin A1C. Optimal is less than 5.3, but I'm going to be concerned when you're 5.3 to 5.6, and then traditional normal is 5.7 all the way up to 6.4. I'm telling you that you're pre-diabetic in that phase. We're definitely working on stuff here. We're working on stuff 5.3 to 5.6 actually, and then diabetes is over 6.5. So you can see, like I'm looking when it's 5.4 and you're not getting a diagnosis until it's 6.5. That's a huge difference. Okay, that's why optimal levels are so beneficial. Okay, fasting insulin. This is probably something that you've never had done. And it tells us how hard your pancreas is working in the background to get these numbers. Like what are these, what's your pancreas doing? How much insulin is it pumping out in order to keep these numbers looking the way that they're looking, however they're looking. Okay. So fasting insulin, optimal is less than 5. I'm going to be concerned 5 to 10. You have early insulin resistance. I'm going to tell you that you're insulin resistant at 10 to 15, and greater than 15, you are significantly insulin resistant, and you probably have diabetes. HOMA-IR. This is a calculation that we do, and we look at your fasting blood sugar and your fasting insulin. We multiply those two numbers together and we divide by 405. So this number, I want it to be less than 1. I'm getting concerned when it's 1 to 1.9, and you have early insulin resistant. That IR means insulin resistance. So you have early insulin resistance when you are 2 to 2.9. And if this is part of a lab that you get through your traditional doctor, traditional medicine is not going to tell you that you have a problem with insulin resistance until it's greater than 3. So I'm concerned at 1.1. Okay. I mean, I'm looking for something at 1.1, and you're not getting any treatment until it's 3. So that's why having someone who looks at them with optimal levels at a functionally makes a difference. Okay, so let's go through these scenarios. So if your fasting glucose is less than 90, your hemoglobin A1C is less than 5.3, your fasting insulin is less than 5, and your HOMA-IR is less than 1, you're truly optimal. You should feel good. You should have a lot of energy. Your weight should be normal. You should be sleeping well. You should, all of those things should be, you're like firing on all cylinders. Okay. So the first scenario. So this is what I want to show you, that you have your fasting glucose is less than 90. Your blood glucose or your hemoglobin A1C is less than 5.3, still optimal. but your fasting insulin is 5 to 10. What this is telling me is that, yeah, these numbers are normal because your pancreas is in the background working really hard to keep those numbers normal. This is early. This is where I'm a little concerned. This is where I would intervene. We would look at, how you're eating. Are you spiking your blood sugar? Are you having too many carbs? Are you eating too often? Are you snacking through the day? Are you eating late at night? Like those kinds of things. And then of course, because this number is elevated and this is calculated off of that, then we're going to start to see some early insulin resistance. The thing about this is that this is where you intervene and have such good results. I mean, you just have great results. And I can tell you 5 to 10 years before you end up in this diabetes or even pre-diabetes, I can usually tell you just from this little thing right here, which is why I have it in my core health panel. Okay. So scenario number 3 means that you have some glucose dysregulation. So now your fasting glucose is elevated just a little bit. It's still not even going to trigger what the traditional high values would be. It's just higher than what I would like to see it as a functional practitioner. Okay, so hemoglobin A1C is still optimal. Maybe your fasting insulin is still optimal, okay? And what we see here is that you might be under chronic stress. That might be why you're spiking that blood sugar. You might have had poor sleep, or you might have excessive carbohydrate intake. And this often happens before we even see this happen. Okay. So now we're talking 10 to 12 years before you're diagnosed with diabetes or pre-diabetes. This is where we can truly intervene. Okay. So this is where we start to address some lifestyle factors. This might, link to cortisol as well. So where your body is just constantly on edge and it's constantly in that fight or flight. So this is where a lot of deep breathing, a lot of meditation, a lot of quiet time, a lot of getting better sleep. I mean, we might not even have to do much with your diet here. Okay. So the next one is, so your fasting glucose is normal, but your hemoglobin A1C is starting to climb. This is where I'm starting to get concerned. Remember, greater than 5.3. Now, your fasting insulin can be variable. It can be, 5 to 10. It might even be 10. But what we're seeing is that you are having your pancreas is pumping out more and more and more insulin in order to deal with all of this stuff. So a couple of things could be that you could have some iron deficiency, and that's why this is abnormal. You also might want to look at your continuous glucose monitoring, because remember, this is a 90-day average. So it might be that you're spiking your blood sugars, or that you're raising your blood sugar often throughout the day because you're snacking. Those sorts of things. It could be that you just have too many carbs and that you're intolerant to those. I would also want to see what your triglycerides are if I see this number. All right. So here we have fasting insulin is starting to rise. Fasting hemoglobin A1C is starting to elevate a little bit. Insulin is starting to elevate. And your HOMA-IR is starting to be in that range where we start to, be interested in doing something about this. It's a high likelihood that you're going to progress to prediabetes and then diabetes if you don't do something. This is where you want to intervene for sure. This is still all below those values. This would never be triggered in your traditional lab. This would never be triggered in your traditional lab. This is usually not measured, and this is something that's rarely calculated. Okay. So the next one is fasting glucose. Now we're really, this is still normal, but it's very concerning for me. Still normal, but very concerning for me. This probably, again, this just shows that you have insulin resistance. And this shows that you have insulin resistance as well. So this is just the next step. Like if you don't intervene, and do something, this is where you're going to end up, right? You're going to end up just before traditional values are going to pick up on this. And let me just turn this around for a second. This is where you have the best results in actually turning things around, because it doesn't take you working on absolutely everything in order to get everything calmed down. It's usually one or two simple little tweaks that we make that you stay consistent with, that are going to make a big difference for you. So I want you to hear that. That's why I'm doing this whole post the way that I'm doing it. All right, let me turn this around again. Okay, so now we have blood sugar is still normal, but it's very abnormal functionally. Same thing here. And then this is just a progression. You can see now you are definitely insulin resistant, but this is where so many times people have told me that their doctor says, well, your hemoglobin A1C is going up. We're just going to watch it. And this is what you get when you watch it. You get insulin resistance that can be reversed, but it's going to take a lot longer, and it's going to take a lot more work on your part to reverse it. This is where you're going to end up. And I think a lot of people, so let's do the last one. So this is where your blood sugar is now abnormal, but your hemoglobin A1C might still be normal, but you're definitely, this could be anywhere. It could be 5 to 10, 10 to 15, but you are definitely seeing some insulin resistance. And what this is telling us is that it's showing us that it's often related to stress. It's often related to poor sleep. It's often related to late eating, because you can imagine that if you're eating late and you get your blood sugar drawn in the morning, that your fasting blood sugar is still going to be elevated. It's that hangover effect from what you had at, like that late night snack, or if you get up in the middle of the night and you eat. Your HOMA-IR is probably going to be elevated, but it's going to be a little variable. Okay, so let me turn this back around. And what I want to say about this is that what this lab is looking, sorry, I was looking at my notes to make sure that I didn't miss anything. So what this whole thing is telling us is that it's a whole lot easier when we catch things early. And there's this whole level of dysfunction that you are going to be that you can experience, and that you're going to be having symptoms from. You're going to be experiencing symptoms if your blood sugar is 95 to 105. I mean, you're going to be feeling that. You're not going to be feeling as good as if it's consistently less than 90. You're going to be feeling it if your hemoglobin A1C is 5.8 or 5.9. You're probably going to feel like, I don't have any energy. I have this pooch around my belly. I don't sleep well. I feel wired at night. And I think so many times we automatically, relate this to cortisol, and cortisol gets a bad rap. Certainly cortisol is involved with some of these, but what I do want to say about cortisol is that cortisol is a reaction to something else that's going on. And it could be hormone imbalance. It could be microbiome imbalance. It could be poor energy utilization in the cells, like your cells aren't making enough energy, or you're feeding them glucose instead of fats and proteins, and they're not making as much energy as they make with those other things. So I just wanted to point out that I know many people have heard it, about the Core Health Panel, but there's a whole, I did so much studying, and so I really wanted to have something that I could teach you with, that I could show you, that if we're waiting until those traditional labs, and this is not a knock on traditional doctors at all, it's just how it's set up. Insurance companies don't pay to treat dysfunction, because you treat dysfunction not with medications. You treat it with lifestyle. You treat it with nutrition. You treat it with, meditation and getting outside and moving your body. And they can't sell that. You know what I mean? They can't sell that. And I hope that you notice that one thing that I didn't say that you treat it with is a bunch of supplements, because I think we're just so so quick to jump on a supplement that's going to make everything easy. And if you've got a lot of dysfunction going on and you throw a supplement in that, number one, you're probably not going to absorb it. Number two, it's not going to be effective. So now you have this false idea that that supplement doesn't work. That supplement works just fine, but you got to put it in the right time, and you got to use it in the right way. So anyway, I hope that this helps someone today. If you have questions about the core health panel that I do, feel free to ask me. I am totally an open book. I definitely want you the healthiest that you can be, the fastest and the easiest that you can do it. So I don't want people sitting around looking at their labs and saying, well, we're just going to watch and wait. They see my hemoglobin A1C rising. We're just watching it. That infuriates me, as a matter of fact. But anyway, so, all right. Happy Wednesday. I will talk to you soon.